Thank you, Laura. Good morning, everyone. Today we will deal with algae standards, both from Europe, but also globally. I hope that this will come out to be interesting for all stakeholders. We will try to keep the schedule as much as possible. So I will go through the agenda. And we will try to also listen from you. So through a very quick opening poll that, if possible, I suggested to launch already, and please participate in this poll while I am going ahead with the agenda. We will start with the introduction about what are standards, and then we will leave the floor to the representative of European Commission, which is very active thanks to the Directorate for Maritime Affairs in promoting the algae sector. Then we will have an overview of the European standard for algae. We will pass then to the bio-based products to which algae belong. We will have an overview of the standards from the CEN, the point of view. Information about what does a private standard mean, and in conclusion, a speech about the pre-normative activity, innovation, and standardization through European projects. And in conclusion, a vision of what is going ahead in ISO standards. So this is for the agenda, and while I hope you can go through the slide, I provide a very, very short overview, if I can share the screen, an introductory overview. Do you see my screen?
Yes, Jesse, we will see, not in presentation mode.
Okay, let me... Oh. Now it works?
Yes, now it's perfect.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So, standards. They are strategic tools to facilitate agreements between stakeholders, based on consensus, which has a specific meaning in ISO language. Consensus doesn't mean unanimity. Consensus is got through open discussion in a transparent way. And the transparency is the second principium very relevant to official standardization that we have to keep in mind. Standard underpin regulation. In this slide that you will get also after the meeting, you see what is the relationship between legislation and standardization, which is the technical support to apply legislation. Because indeed the legislation tell us what are the goals to be reached in order to protect the public interest, whereas the technical norms provide the way to apply this. So how to reach these goals? In standard, a specific language is applied. So standard provide requirements, and the verb is shall, as well as a technical specification, whereas technical report, which are preliminary document, provide recommendations. And standardization has a long history going together with industrial development and also scientific development. So this is from my side, and now I would like to leave the floor to Lucas from the European Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Silvio. Hello. My name is Łukasz Bartoszewicz. I'm a trainee at DG Mare, responsible for our current works on algae standardization. Laura, can you... Yes. Let's wait for the PowerPoint. Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, thanks. So let me start by painting the policy landscape of our current actions. In the last 5 years, the algae topic has caught wind and is increasingly present in the Commission's policies. For the topic of algae standardization, the most important is our communication towards a strong and sustainable EU algae sector of November 2022. It has explicitly called the Commission to take on the standardization efforts in regard to algae ingredients and contaminants, as well as the biofuel usage of algae. However, in the recent years, we have moved more and more towards embracing the food and feed usage of algae and their derivatives. This move towards consumption usage can be clearly seen in other Commission's actions, like the inclusion of algae food application in the Farm to Fork strategy and the emergence of the EU Algae Initiative. Additionally, calls for supporting the growth of blue bioeconomy and algae industry are included in our strategic guidelines for aquaculture by 2030, as well as in the recent Ocean Pact. In line with that, it was important for us to address the calls of stakeholders for further standardization, including such calls from EU4Algae and the EABA. Next slide, please. Thank you. In response to this, we have managed to include the algae standardization in the annual Union Work Programme of 2026. It means that the Commission has officially informed that it is interested in asking the European Standardization Committee for such standards. The work program is calling for standards on sustainable EU algae industry as part of the decarbonization and competitiveness priority, including, but not limiting to, standards on cultivation, processing, and quality control. These standards should be aimed at facilitating governance, as well as enhancing social awareness and market environment. Next slide, please. Thank you. The state of play at this point is that already existing EN standards regarding algae were drafted on the basis of a decision from 2016, created by DG4Energy, and focusing mostly on the bioenergy implementations. This year marks a decade since its implementation, and obviously the sector has changed incredibly in that time. As such, as DG Mare, we have started the legislative process of drafting a new Commission implementing decision to grant the CEN a strong mandate for new standardization actions. I have been part of these legislative efforts since the adoption of the annual Union Work Programme, and I can now confirm that the phase of internal drafting within DG Mare has been completed. A month ago, we have entered the second phase, which includes inter-service consultations and other consultation procedures specific to adopting this type of legal document. This is still an internal work in progress, so I am not able to share everything with you today. However, I will try to let you know as much about this work as it is currently possible. The Commission implementing decision will set up a framework within which CEN will create new standards in accordance with their internal procedures. As such, the most important thing now from the technical point of view is that the priority areas of standardization are set up right. On our side, we are not drawing any indicators nor thresholds. We are only showing CEN which areas need unified standards. We have identified 6 main areas that we would like CEN to focus at. However, this is still subject to feedback from other institutional actors. As you will see, these areas were identified in line with problems that you have highlighted to us. So thank you for raising these to us. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry, someone else has started sharing their screen. Can we go back to Laura's presentation?
I think I can see your screen, no?
Right now, I can see someone else's screen. I believe of the next presenter.
Just a second.
Okay, thank you. Oh, I saw that for a moment.
Now?
Yes, thank you.
Right.
So the first identified area is the naming and identification of algae strains and varieties. The sector requires a stable and traceable naming system for production strains that preserves common commercial names while remaining aligned with evolving scientific taxonomy. This is critical for regulatory compliance, for example, with the EU Novel Foods Catalog, but also for the trade clarity and consumer trust. The second area are the methods for determining and verifying the geographical origin of algae biomass. Origin labeling is mandatory for aquaculture products, which includes algae. These standards will support producers, traders, and authorities in verifying claims, preventing fraud, and strengthening market transparency. This is important for ensuring the level playing field. And the third area is quality criteria and labeling, which is a problem clearly connected to the previous two areas. Next slide, please. The fourth area is the iodine levels, both its measurement and reduction methods. In line with your feedback, we are seeing the crucial need for a standardization in this matter, as many EU-produced brown seaweeds contain excessively high iodine levels, limiting their use in food market. The fifth area is the environmental performance. Standardized verification of resource efficiency and environmental performance is essential for scaling this sector, supporting sustainability claims and aligning it with EU green policies. And finally, revision of the vocabulary, as the sector is evolving rapidly and a regular revision of already existing standards should not be overlooked. Next slide, please. We are internally expecting this decision to be adopted either in late 2026 or early 2027. At this point, we are planning for all these standards to be adopted within 5 years of the decision's adoption. However, it is subject to changes. This means that at least a good portion of these areas will see new standards by the year 2032. I know that it sounds like a distant future, but let me remind you that the previous mandate for algae standardization has already been in force for 10 years, which is twice as long. It should be seen as a good standard that standards are not adapted too rapidly. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Lucas. Very good news from DG Mare side. We are very grateful for this. And I would suggest, before going to listen how a standardization request works from CEN point of view, to come a little bit back to the slide, because we are on schedule. Thanks also for this to Lucas.
Okay, so most of you already joined the slide or have started the poll? And then here we have the first question. It's supposed that we can see the results while you start voting. The link for joining is also in the chat. So once more, here's the QR code for you to join. Let's see. Oh, I see already some people in, although we cannot see here in the. We have 21 votes so far. So 55 said yes. Okay, so 55% said yes. Have you ever used an European standard? Shall we move to the next? We have 22 people voting, so if more people could join and help us with this poll.
Can you show the QR code, please?
Yes, I will. And Martina, is not the slides, it's the Slido. Here you can see the QR code. We still have 22 people 23. Good. You have to scan the QR code, or I'll put again here in the chat the link. And then maybe I see 39 people in, so good. The first questions, have you ever used an European standard? Let's see. So now we have more no. We have 58% no. So while you're joining, we now have 45 people in, which is good. Let's move to the next question. So are you familiar with at least one out of ISO 9,000, 14,000, 22,000 series? And if you say yes, maybe you can put in the chat how many. I don't see people still in this one. Let me see. So yeah, now you can vote for the second question. So yeah, changing quite fast. Let's give a couple of minutes so we can. So yeah, so far 58 said yes, 42 said no. Sylvia, maybe you can also check if there's something else in the chat. I cannot see it all. So 58% said yes. You can now also see the next question. Are you aware of Codex standards? See people already voting. Majority said no, 65%, 67% no, 71% no. Now we move to the next one. How many algae European standards are you aware of? So known, winning 60%. All 15%. But known 63%, more than 60%.
Sorry, Laura, could you show us again the QR code?
Yes,
Sorry.
just 1 second. I'll get back to the QR code. Now, can you see it?
Yes, thanks.
You're welcome, Ellen. And also the link, it's in the chat. So we are, which outreach you imagine for our standards? 20% of stakeholders is winning. 20% is winning, 72, 75%. Now, I'll also open the next question, which is, do you think it's fair to pay the cover price for standard access? 56, more than 50%, now changed completely to no, 60%. So the question is, do you think it's fair to pay the cover price for a standard process? Majorities are saying no. I will also open the next question. So did you know that thanks to the European standard 17480, it's possible to check claims on production capacity of a facility? 67%, 70%, more than 70%, 83% say no. Okay, dear Silvio, maybe those are ready for the end, right?
Exactly,
Okay.
Laura. So I
Okay.
suggested that we now give the floor to the next speaker, providing us with the knowledge, how does it works with the standardization request, which is the step further after the commission mandate. Thank you very much. And thank you also for this slide. I think that it is very interesting.
So I guess I should start now. Hello, everyone. My name is Carolina Müller. I'm the CEN and ISO Program Manager for Environment, and therefore from our side responsible for dealing with the algae topic. Luckily, Silvio and Lucas already said a little bit about standards, so you know what a standard is and how the system works, at least from Commission side. So I will present you the workflow and the important steps to be covered when we from CEN CENELEC receive a standardization request. But first of all, let's go a bit on the broader picture. In January 2023, the European Commission established a high-level forum on standardization, which has the tasks to identify standardization priorities in support of EU policies and support key activities for the implementation of the EU strategy on standardization. So as Lucas already said, there is an annual Union work program for standardization, which is issued annually, where the European Commission includes their priorities for that year, which is covered. And the input from that is gathered first in the high-level forum on standardization. So coming from very broad now to the one step further, which is the annual Union work program. It is always published, so there's a link included and you will receive the slides later on. So everyone can access it and can have a look what the European Commission intends to send as standardization requests to CEN, CENELEC, or ETSI, the 3 standardization organizations for Europe. The one of 2026 includes 34 actions, and the action specifically for algae has already been presented by Lucas now. And those are a prerequisite for a standardization request. So having the topic included in the annual Union work program is mandatory for sending a standardization request. So for us receiving a standardization request. And we, as the CEN and CENELEC Management Center, there's CCMC is the abbreviation for that, inform our members and the technical bodies involved in the topic. And this is an overview of a harmonization workflow works. So usually, or many of the standardization requests we receive are for standards to be cited in the annual in the official journal of the European Union. And a standard cited in the official journal gives a presumption of conformity to legal requirements. Standards still remain voluntary in use, but this workflow is specifically important for product conformity. Here it works the same. The European Commission issues a standardization request. Here the ESPR is just an example to CEN, CENELEC, or ETSI, the 3 standardization organizations, but we are CEN, CENELEC. After accepting that, there's the CEN committee here, in case it's CEN committee on algae products, draft the requested standards, which are assessed. There are third-party assessment, which is necessary in the process. So someone else will check whether that standard is in compliance with the underlying legislation. And only after a positive assessment, a standard can be cited in the official journal to give presumption of conformity. not all of the standardization requests are meant for standards cited in the official journal. So in the case of the algae standards, they are not meant to be cited, but nonetheless, a standardization request is without citation is, well, as valid and as important as the one with citation. Standardization request, here we have that, is a precondition for the citation, but it's also a precondition, well, receiving a standardization is a precondition for us for drafting the standards. All of the standardization requests also are available online, so every citizen can have a look which active standardization requests are currently being worked on. There's also a link here on the slides. The standardization request is usually divided in two parts. There's the formal legal part in the beginning, and then there's an annex where the technical list of deliverables to be developed is included. And this is how it looks like. The first part, as I said, is the formal part, the legal part, where it is clearly defined which work program is to be followed when the reports are due, and which is also very important, is the expiration of the request. So the period, as already mentioned for the standardization request on algae, the upcoming one will have a period of 60 months. And whenever the 60 months are over, the standardization request expires. So after the legal deadline is reached, there's no framework to offer standards or framework to develop standards. So this is very important that we follow exactly what is included in the formal part of the work program of the standardization request. The second part is more the technical part. That it is Annex 1, and Annex 1 has then tables for standards to be developed or tables for standards to be revised. The Annex 1 contains the exhaustive list, so all of the standards are included with the deadline on when the European Commission expects to receive the standard. It is a possibility to amend a standardization request whenever it is identified in the course of the development that there might be a delay, but this requires a new standardization request. So amending a standardization request is not an easy task to do. It's not quick, it's not easy. That requires an amendment of a standardization request. It's the same process as a standardization request. And this is in length how the process looks like. You have been introduced to the first step, which is the annual union work program, where we, from our side, from the technical bodies, are informed of relevant topics which might or will be sent in the course of the year. Whenever we receive a standardization request, and that is the second from the left, second boxes from the left, we inform our technical boards and we inform all of the technical bodies to be included in a so-called SRAG, a standardization request ad hoc group. And this is also mandatory in our processes, that we establish a group to which we from CEN and ISO consult for technical input on the standardization request. The SRAG gives an estimation of whether the work is realistic, the deadlines are realistic, the content of the standards should be, the requested content of the standard should be changed or amended. So the SRAG is really the technical group of limited membership from us internally, giving then feedback to the European Commission. And this, you see the arrows going back and forth. This is usually a process where we discuss the standardization requests, send it back to the European Commission for comments, but very often we receive it back, the next version of the standardization request. So when the European Commission have seen our comments and decided to include them, we receive a new version, and that goes then again to the ad hoc group, the standardization request ad hoc group, to be discussed. And this goes on and on until we've reached a conclusion that this is the final version we, from a technical side, can work with and send it back as the final version. Then the next steps mostly happen on Commission side, which is the inter-service consultation, then circulation and consultation in the Committee on Standards, and a vote in the Committee on Standards and closure of the vote in the Committee on Standards with a positive result. So the positive result is for us to go forward. Of course, it can also have a negative result. We, on our internal side, in the meanwhile, prepare the final draft and consult all of our members through Europe, so everyone can have a last vote on accepting the standardization request in its current forms, and they rely on the standardization request ad hoc group with the technical experts to give a to give their recommendation whether the standardization request should be accepted. And well, if all goes well and we are happy with the draft we received and the European Commission's Committee on Standards voted positively on that, we will receive the implementing act with the notification, which we then formally accept or reject, but we usually accept, especially with the standardization request ad hoc group before that gave a positive opinion. After that follows the actual technical work. So it will start with a work program. It is requested in the first part of the standardization request that okay, that was not a question. There was in the first part of the standardization request, there's a work program requested. So usually within a time frame of 6 weeks to 3 months, the technical body working on executing the standardization request is requested to draft a work program where all the deliverables to be developed or revised are included, and the time frame for the execution is also written out. Then in the course of the standardization request over the years, there are annual reports requested where it is possible to include if the technical body faces some challenges while drafting the standard, it is possible to include that in the annual report to already notify the European Commission that that it might take longer to develop one of the standards, or possibly already highlight that a change might be needed. In the end, there's a final report, and everything then comes to the closure with the, in case of the algae standardization request, the 60-month when the final report will be due. And that was it. I am open for questions, of course, or do you do that with the Slido as well, Laura?
Thank you very much, Carolina. It looks quite complicated, but in the end, it is a mechanism in place. It works, and it, to me, just gives the proof. What does consensus, what does transparency mean? Because this is the behavior of official technical norms. They are open to stakeholders. They are open even to citizens to participate. And in the end, this is the power of standards, I believe. Thank you very much. So if there are no questions, but I suggest to put them in the chat, I think that we now, with a few minutes in our schedule.
There is one question from Martina Rossi in the chat. Are there any standards requests in relation to algae-based construction materials?
Not that I'm aware of at the moment.
I would say the same. Algae-based construction materials, I guess that they belong to product application of algae biomass, which is under development. And I think that the best way to put this forward is for the interested stakeholders to join the TC 454 and go through the roadmap that is in place. So now the time is coming to pass to the next speakers. That is Maria Gustafsson. She is the secretary of the Bio-Based Products Standardization Committee, TC 411. She knows about biobase, I guess, more than anyone else, and she will explain us what does biobase environment mean, to which we as algae belong to. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you so much, Silvio. I will share my screen, hopefully the right one. Yes, I'll just move this window. Yes, so thank you so much, Silvio, and I very much like the expression power of standards. I will use that one moving forward. My name is Maria Gustafsson. As Silvio said, I'm secretary of CEN TC411, which sets horizontal standards for bio-based products. This TC covers bio-based products from all types of biomass. The focus is on other products than food, feed, and fuels. You can use the standards for those applications if you want, but we are not taking this the specific legislation in those areas into account in our standards. The CEN Technical Committee started its work in 2011. Due to the Lead Market Initiative, there was a mandate from DG GROW. Mandate is the old name for standardization requests. And the mandate had a purpose to promote bio-based products. So this was a type of mandate that was not linked to any legislation, but more to get the market sector going, using standards as a support. And many of our standards, they were developed quite some time ago, but they have been under systematic review, and they have been confirmed that they are still relevant and current. So basically, we cover 5 different areas: terminology, bio-based content, sustainability criteria, life cycle assessment, and communication. And I will give a little bit of some details for each of those areas. So we have a vocabulary standard called EN 575, and of course, one of the most important terms and definitions was bio-based products. And the definition looks simple. It says product wholly or partly derived from biomass. So it does not have to be 100%. So it's not only like a wooden plank, for example. It's also something that's partly bio-based. However, other standards set requirements that if you say that it's a bio-based product, that means that it's 100% bio-based. If it's not 100% bio-based, you need to give a percentage. And the notes explain that it's, of course, characterized by the bio-based content in the product, and that with product, we also talk about materials, for example. So it's not only final consumer products. And I also brought in the definition of biomass. This is very much a standard definition within the CEN and ISO system of biomass. There are some small details that are different, but they all say that it's a biological origin, and then they exclude fossil materials. And in the examples here, we mentioned different types of biomass, and algae and other marine organisms are among those. The vocabulary standard also has an annex, which provides guidance on the use of the bio prefix, basically explaining that if you say only, for example, bioplastic or biolubricant, that can mean many different things, because it can mean bio-based, it can mean biodegradable, and many different things. So the recommendation is to not just say bio, but to say the full term and to use a standard reference as well. And at the moment, we are discussing whether we will add more terms and definitions to the standard. We have methods for bio-based content, a C14 method for determining the bio-based carbon content. This standard is currently under revision, and it was approved in the ballot, so we are just preparing it for publication now. And we included a new method called the SCAR method, which was not previously included. That was the aim of the revision. We also have 2 standards for bio-based content, the EN 16785 series, one with a measurement method and one with a calculation method. And the material balance method is a very conservative mass balance type of calculation, but you need to also have a verifiable minimum bio-based content that you need to be able to give. There are also a couple of other standards on topics such as oxygen content and stable isotope ratios. During the discussions, we could not find consensus on other types of mass balance or book and claim methods, but it was very clear that if you don't have a guaranteed physical content, then you cannot call it a bio-based product, and you have to call it something else. 2 standards related to communication, one business to business, which sets up a data sheet with information to include, and one business to consumer standard. Both of these are currently under revision to look at to support the new legislation in the area around environmental claims. We have one sustainability criteria standard, which covers all 3 pillars of sustainability and uses a risk-based approach. The standard is based on a global standard for sustainability criteria for bioenergy. And there's also technical reports supporting it with some examples. Also, this standard is currently under revision, where we want to take it one step further to make it a little bit more hands-on, and because currently it's pretty much a framework, and also to add new concepts such as circularity. When this standard was first published in 2015, people did not talk that much about circularity as they do today. So just to make sure that the standard is completely up to date. We also work on LCA. We have one basic LCA standard, which is based on the 2 well-known standards if you work in LCA, ISO 1440 and 44. This standard focuses on what's specific for bio-based products. For example, it provides guidance on choices for modeling for different biomass types. When this standard was published in, I think it was 2015 or possibly 2016, there was not that much specific methods for aquaculture. So the recommendation in this standard is to look at the modeling for agriculture and adjust as needed, because that was the best there was at that point in time. Last year, we also published a new standard on comparing bio-based and fossil-based products through LCA. And this one focuses on topics of particular interest to these comparisons, or topics where bio-based products are often disadvantaged in calculations made in the market. So we looked at biogenic removals and emissions, also delayed emissions, data symmetries, emerging technologies, and many other topics. And one of the previous standard had 2 alternative approaches. Either you could use what's called the 0-0 approach, which means that as long as you have a stable biomass pool, then you can say that the biomass production is neutral. But here you have the opportunity to look at the uptakes, for example, in a forest, and then the emissions at the end of the value chain. And this is kind of technical, but it enables you to show, for example, if you work in forestry, you can show that you have a growing carbon sink in the forest landscape, and you can also show when you have long-lived products, you can calculate the carbon storage in those products. And in that standard, we use a figure developed by CEN 454 on algae. So I wanted to include it, and it depicts the complexity of which algae can be considered bio-based and not, depending on the source of the flue gas used. And finally, I want to say a couple of words on a project I'm also working on at the moment, an ISMEA-funded project called Stand for Bio, with the title Mapping and Feasibility Study for Standards on Biotechnology, Bio-Based Materials, Bio-Based and Wood-Derived Products, which I think might be of interest to this group as well. In summary, this project will provide an overview of the standards that are already in place and how those standards work for bio-based products, and also what are the standardization needs to further get the bioeconomy going. We have 5 work packages, one on project management, and the one that we are putting a lot of time in at the moment is the mapping of existing standards, where we look both at standards and other deliverables, but also compare terminology. And we will, after the summer, we will start more with the feasibility study for new and revised standards, which is a very outreach-focused part of the project. So far, we have talked to some of the technical committees involved, but now we will have workshops and surveys and such, which I wanted to take the opportunity to promote also to you guys. We also have 2 other work packages which are more specific for wood construction and biodegradability. But I wanted to highlight that we will have workshops in August and September where you can have your say on standard needs and so on. So this QR code would take you to our webpage for the project, and you will get the material. So, but just to let you know, and then we will have a survey opening in October as well. So I hope that many of you would be interested to take part. Now it seems like you have a standardization request ongoing, but there might be other needs when it comes to, for example, algae in the construction sector, as someone mentioned, for example. So that was a summary of the activities from our side, and if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer if there's time. Otherwise, you will have my contact details in the presentation, so please feel free to reach out whenever.
Thank you very much, Maria. Very, very interesting, both for the bio-based landscape to which algae belong, and we are going to see the details of the algae standards right now. But in advance of this, since we have a few minutes, if there is any question, both about the bio-based sector and the joining projects, European projects with their freedom and scientific potential to the standardization environment with its rules, which is good, which is very good. And we will listen also this in the following speeches. But I would say if there is any question, please raise the hand from the audience or put them in the chat.
There is one question from Agaperi in the chat for Carolina. I don't know, Carolina, if I had a chance to see. In tropical algae, maybe Silvio, you want to check, or Agaperi, would you like to raise the question orally?
Thank you, Laura. Hello?
Yes,
Hello?
yes, go ahead.
You want me to ask the question to Carolina? I'm from Indonesia. So in tropical algae, carrageenite farming product is strongly shaped before processing at the level of seed, farm environment, disease pressure, and farming practice. Is there a mechanism within CEN or related standardization process to include like producer country like Indonesia case study, for example, from Indonesia before a European standard is finalized?
Yes, that is a very technical question, but usually there's no such mechanism for including data from outside of Europe. Since European standards are developed for the European market, but there will later be a presentation by the ISO standards. So it's more likely that those data is included in the ISO standards. However, they can always be presented to the committee to look at. So it is in the hands of the technical experts working in CEN 454 on algae to whether to include this data or not. But I would say that this is not relevant from a outsider perspective for the European algae market. But maybe like the technical experts need to assess that.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Laura.
Thank you very much. No other question? Okay, so Susanna, please, the floor is yours. Susanna is the secretary of the Algae Standard TC 454, and she will teach us what European standards mean since 10 years now.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Silvio, for your introduction. My name is Susanne de Jonge. I am the secretary of the CEN Technical Committee 454 about algae and algae products. And today I will provide you with an overview of how our CEN TC has evolved, what kind of standards we have produced so far, and also providing you with 3 examples of the differences between the standards we have and also how to read and use those standards. But I think Silvio already gave a really good recap of why European standards matter and why also those standards matter a lot for algae. So I will skip this slide and I will just move forward to how our CEN TC has been created. So give or take about 10 years ago, the CEN was requested to develop European standards supporting Article 3 regarding algae and algae-based products or intermediates in support of the Innovating for Sustainable Growth and a Bioeconomy for Europe. First, there was a CEN Technical Board Working Group established to research the possibilities of algae standards and also to start the execution of the mandate. After a first year of creating the work program, looking into feasibility of certain standards, the CEN TC 454 algae and algae products was created. Now, basically from that time until now, we have executed 2 standardization requests. The first one has been finalized about 2 years ago, and the second one will be finalized this year. And then in total, we will have created 20 different standards regarding algae. And also, like Lucas already indicated, some new work is coming our way and is under preparation. A new work will probably start somewhere in 2027 for our TC. Well, this work is done in several different working groups. So in total, we have created 8 working groups to execute the 2 standardization requests. You will probably notice when you add up the numbers in this column, you will add up to 19 instead of the 20 I earlier mentioned. That is because the first working group about terminology has 1 standard in its portfolio, and that's the standard about vocabulary, and that is being revised every couple of years. You see that we have different kind of standards, what we create and what we develop. So for instance, the working group 6 has a lot of standards, but they're all analytical methods. And I mentioned a couple of them, for instance, determination of total lipids, quantification of chlorophyll, and determination of fatty acid composition. If you want to have the complete overview of what we developed, you can, when you receive the presentation, you can click the link here because then it guides you to a complete overview of all the standards we have developed. I want to also highlight that we cannot develop these standards without the expertise of the people within the working groups. They have worked really hard to create and develop these standards. It has been difficult sometimes, but I think we have a really good portfolio with these 20 standards. Let me see. So what I would like to do from now on is, you know, a little bit what we do. So we have analytical methods, we have standards that provide guidance on certain topics, and I would like to walk you through the different standards we have, and also how you should use and read them to make sure you can put them into practice fully. So I'd like to start a little bit with mentioning that every European standard has follows the same structure. It has a couple of elements that are mandatory and always need to be included, but also a couple of optional or conditional elements. And I think the first standard I want to highlight is our vocabulary standard. I think it's one of the most important standards in our portfolio because it establishes a common terminology. If you do not do that, then you get misinterpretations of what people talk about and what is meant. And you want to, in any case, prevent that because you need to make sure that we talk about the same thing. You will always also see when you read our standards and use them that this standard is almost referenced in every algae standard we have created so far. So before you move on to any technical requirements in your standard, make sure you read the terms and definitions because only then you can fully understand what we are talking about. In addition to the terms and definition, the scope is also one of the main things of a document. I've highlighted the scope of one of our other, I think also very important standards, which Silvio also indicated, and it also came back into the Slido. And I think this is an example of how a scope should be written and is nicely written, even though it's very compact. So the first paragraph clearly states what is included. The second paragraph, just as importantly, indicates what is not included in the scope. And if you read the scope, you can determine then if this standard is applicable to your product or to your process. And in this case, it clearly indicates that this standard defines key productivity concepts for terminology. It describes how productivity from a algae growth site should be determined, how you should calculate it, report it, and it supports the comparison also between different cultivation systems. Which is also, you get comparable data, which is very good for even trade and equal playing field. But it also indicates the scope, but it does not include. So it does not include sampling methods, harvesting procedures, pre or post processing algae, or wild algae growing without cultivation. So if you're looking for anything in the left column, then you should, in this case, not use this standard. This is a standard that provides guidance and guidelines, which is perfect for that use. But we also have a lot of standards that are more, that show analytical methods. And I'd like to show you how they are constructed as well, because I also think this is important, because if you standardize analytical methods, and in this case, I took our amino acid profile standard, you get comparable data, and then laboratories can produce comparable data, and they can compare data, which is easier also for companies to see, to analyze the data, because you know if this method has been used, then you know how you can read it and compare it to. And also for laboratories, it's easier to find their information. It usually follows the same same structure. It starts with the principle, so a short explanation of the method, and in this case for the amino acids is a description of the UV or the mass spectrometry detection. Then an overview of all reagents, either what you should buy or how to prepare them and how to use them, followed by a equipment and apparatus section or clause. This is actually a very important clause as well, because it explains all settings, temperature ranges, etc. to use in the procedure. Because if you only read the procedure, you really miss the details that is explained in the reagent and apparatus clauses. Well, those three clauses If you perform them, you get your results. We show you how to calculate your results and how you express your results. And then it's at the last part of our standards, we always tell you something about precision, about about the precision of the method, if it's reproducible or not. Repeatability is mentioned as well, and then you know that the method is of good quality. And then we in the annexes, that's the part where you can actually deep dive into the data. You see what kind of validation data is produced when we standardize the method, and there you can deep dive for for the additional information you need. So in recap, if you use our standards, start with the scope, make sure you understand what you want, that you understand the document and that it applies to what you want to use. Then make sure you know what we're talking about in the terms and definitions, and only then you move forward to the technical content of the standard, maybe deep dive into the annexes if needed, and you can report according to what is written in a standard. With showing you these three different kind of standards we produce and develop within our TC, I think you can imagine also that we need kind of a broad expertise, and we have that quite well covered, but I think we could also still use some additional expertise. So I think it is always important to make sure that when you develop standards, you have a broad, that the entire market is represented in that process as well, because you want to make sure that from all different sides of the sector, the opinion and the expertise is used. So why would you participate in our work is that you bring your expertise to the standards, but we also bring our expertise to you. Your network becomes broader, you get a big European network, and you can use the expertise of those experts already present in our TC as well in your own work. You can help identify new topics. If there's something you run into in your daily job, or you see that there are certain issues, you can help identify those topics, and we can work together to see if we can create European standards to fix those topics and to make sure that everybody works in the same way. You can influence the content of our European algae standards, and you will support innovation and market growth, but I think most importantly, you will help build a stronger European algae sector. So when you're interested in becoming part of our TC or any other TC related to algae or bio-based products, you should reach out to your national standardization body. If you don't know who they are or where to find those contact details, you can always find them through the CEN website. And that was it. That's what I wanted to tell you. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much indeed, Suzanne. Again, if there are questions for Suzanne, please, the floor is for the audience. I thank you very much because you show us and make us get in touch how standards are complex tools that makes our life easier. When we have such well-organized systems to make analytical testing with the highest attendance that different laboratories provide us with comparable results, or we have a common language, then we go there. So I share completely your appeal for algae stakeholders to join the TC 454, to join and look what is going around, also because the standardization is not only made up of official standard, and we are going to see that the term standard is widely used by industry and by market, also outside the official domain. So for the questions, there is still a bit of time.
I don't see questions on the chat. Just one comment from Vitor. Very good presentation, Suzanne. Clear and comprehensive.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's go ahead with the next speaker. He is an expert of LCA. He comes from industry. Yuki Kabe, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Silvio. Thank you for the invitation. It is a pleasure to be here. Laura, could you please share the presentation? Yeah, so Silvio asked me to share a little bit of my experience with private standards. And so I think it is important that we try to distinguish between what is usually called public standards and what are the private standards. So next slide, please. So let's say the more common definition of a standard. So not necessarily the technical definition, but when we say we have a standard, we have a parameter to compare and to protect the market and the customers and the stakeholders in this market. And so it is a general point of harmonization, a model, and the standard is, as many prior speakers mentioned, always based on consensus, a general consent. Okay, so we have these standards that are usually divided into public and private. And so the technical definition of a public standard is the standard that is consolidated in a regulatory procedure, which makes it a mandatory standard. Everything that is not required by regulation is usually called a private standard. So next slide, please. So usually we wanted, or it would be very nice if we could divide the standards in a very clear-cut way. So on one side, whatever standard is mandatory because of legislation, and on the other side, voluntary private standards that are developed by organizations that are non-governmental. So strictly speaking, ISO standards are, in this sense, private because they are not developed by governments. They are not mandatory. However, the real world is much more complicated than that, because, next slide please, Laura, because in fact there is an overlap of these two types of standard. The first thing is that it is based on a general consent, which means that the more general the consent, the more de facto mandatory becomes the standard. So there is this intersection between what is voluntary and what is mandatory, because, well, it is voluntary, but it means that if I want to sell, if I want to join the market, I am obliged by the general consent of the market to abide by a standard. So although it is a voluntary standard, it is a de facto mandatory standard, but not because legislation says that it's mandatory, but because the market in general has given the consent that this is the way to move forward. And so between private standards, which is based on the range of adoption of that standard. And that makes things a little more fuzzy to define. Another thing that we have to mention is that this mandate is jurisdictional, which means that there are standards that are voluntary, but in certain jurisdictions, legislation has made them mandatory. So might be that a standard that is voluntary in some jurisdictions might be mandatory in others. So this definition is again codependent. So for practical purposes, the difference between a private and a public standard is very context dependent, which means you have to look at your market if there is the general requirement for the adoption of certain standards other than in legislation. There is also another thing that I want to mention is an overlap between standards and certification or labeling schemes, because these labeling schemes, these certifications, they also come with their specific requirements and procedures and things like that. So those there is an overlap between standards and certificates and labels. So these things are also a little bit hard to define, and we have to pay attention to those details. From the industry perspective, this makes participating in the standardization process quite relevant, and that's why I have joined many of those standardization initiatives, because it is important that one particular group of stakeholders, which is the market, or the ones that introduce things into the market, the producers, they are also part of the standardization process. So to guarantee that there is a fair representation of different stakeholders groups in the standardization process, it is necessary that these standardization or these stakeholders are represented in the standardization process. Okay, and so I think we will have some difficulty in trying to define these things, but the market is evolving to a state where standards will be more and more common, and they will become mandatory, de facto mandatory, even if they are not in legislation or regulation specifically. Next slide, please, Laura. So ISO states that a standard should be approved by a recognized body to be called a standard. But again, the operative word here is recognition. So what makes an organization or a recognized is this recognition is given by the market. And so there are organizations that have been more and more recognized. So one good example in the environmental realm is, for instance, the Greenhouse Gas Protocol, which is not an official organization. It is a non-governmental organization of a partnership between the World Resources Institute and the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. But they have created standards that are widely adopted in the market, to the point that certain jurisdictions, like the state of California in the United States, have adopted the Greenhouse Gas Protocol rules as the rules to be adopted in the in the calculation of corporate inventories and carbon footprints. So these is one good example of the strength and importance of a private standard. That is what I would like to share, and I open to questions or comments. If you have, please make them.
Thank you, Yuki. Indeed, I am told that the Greenhouse Gas Protocol is being some way recognized also from ISO in the ISO 14068 or something like that series. So that meaning that when technical language and the tools perform well, there is no a barrier in merging the private and the public tools. What is important is
yes, on that, Silvio, there is an ongoing cooperation agreement between ISO and GHG protocol in an attempt to harmonize the respective standards of both organizations regarding corporate standards, carbon footprint, because they are the two most widely used sets of standards in that aspect. And so it is good that you mentioned that, and that also informs us about the relevance of private standards in this process.
Thank you indeed. What I would stress, however, is that the degree of transparency and openness to even small stakeholders is different in the public case and in the private one, or at least this is my feeling. Well, thank you, Yuki. You touched also another very relevant point, which I think we will listen from the next speakers, which is the relationship between technical norms and certification. So now, if there are no questions, I suggest to go ahead with the next speaker. Let me say that we are gathering today such a big amount of information that the availability of each presentation will be really a treasure for every one of us. But now, please, Elena Mocchio, she is the Standardization and Innovation Manager in the Italian standardization body. Please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Silvio. I'm going to share my screen. Please let me know if everything works in the right way. Just 1 second. All right. Okay. Do you see my screen? Because I'm not sure.
We don't have yet in presentation mode, Elena.
All right, just 1 second because something is not really working well. All right, now it works. And you see it in presentation mode, correct?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Well, what I'm going to share with you is the connection, is the somehow the information about the connection between innovation and standardization, and what standardization can do in support of innovation activities, such as a European funded project. We will go through what innovation and the relationship between innovation and standards, then which are the European project opportunities, what we can do in relation as standardization body in relation to European project, and then going behind, in particular, focusing in particular on Horizon Europe or Horizon 2020 for the past project, and then we will go also behind and the Horizon behind the Horizon Europe approach and going to ISMEA opportunities again with an approach which links somehow innovation for the ISMEA project is not that innovation, but it's supporting the development of future standards. So it's something in between the innovation and the full standardization activities, let's say. UNI is the Italian standardization body, just to remind everybody that UNI is one of the standardization body across the world, and we represent Italy at European and at ISO level. So it's the Italian representation in CEN activities and ISO activities. This is very important because, as explained before, the participation to European or to ISO standardization activities goes through the national standardization body. So it's important to be aware of the fact that participating to your standardization body activities, you will be able to join also the European and international standardization activities and providing your feedback and your inputs, let's say. So innovation and standards, how standards can contribute to innovation. Well, first of all, it's important to underline that standards are an important tool to enhance interoperability between different technologies. And this also, and standardization as a system is a platform which provides access to information and knowledge sharing. It's a platform where different stakeholders participate and take and discuss about the technical content of a future standard or also of pre-standardization documents, and therefore they are a very important way of transfer knowledge and transfer a way of technology transfer. They are also, they ensure also somehow trust and security because in relation to the adoption of new technologies, defining safety and security requirements, for example, and then provide the opportunity of a cost reduction due to the fact that somehow they provide a scalability way of approaching new or somehow settle issues. And the European Commission encourages the use of standards in Horizon Research project. And they recognize in standardization, they recognize that standardization is important and is a tool to boost innovation and competitiveness across the European Union. And this is also settled by the fact that the Commission promotes the involvement of standardization bodies such as UNI and such as CIS or NEN, for example, in the activity in the European funded project. And you will see that there is a guidance for the use of standardization in European project, which the link is available on my slide, so you can access the guidance in order to discover how to engage standardization bodies into European funded project. Together with this, there's also a code of practice on standardization, which has been developed in the past year, and it's a code of practice for researchers and provides input on how researchers can act and can take advantages of participation to European standardization through the European founded project. And UNI participated to the drafting of this code of practice by providing inputs coming from the experience we had with a European founded project where we were partners.
Elena, sorry to interrupt, but
yes,
people just said in the chat they are seeing like the presenter's mode. So it's
oh, sorry. So I have to move. Sorry about that. Okay, now it should work. Thanks. Yeah, it's because I have two screens, so it's important. Yeah, so I mixed the two. Thanks. Sorry for that. Anyway, of course, the standards are also an important tool to support UN goals for 2030. From an economic, social, and environmental point of view, I always add also the institutional sustainability, because somehow standardization as a system and standards as outcome of a standardization system encourage, support what is the 17th goal, the partnership for the goals. Because the standardization system is a platform where different stakeholders coming from private and public organizations can meet and discuss about the content of the standards. That's why we consider that standards in general, according to the different content of the standards, may support UN goals for 2030. And in particular, this is a map of ISO standards in relation to the different goals. And it's a mapping of about 29,000 ISO standards. And the big difference is done. So a lot of standards are related to goal 9, which is related to the industry and to the innovation. So again, it's something strictly linked to building trust and creating tools for the industry, which are supported by innovation and innovative activities and innovative content coming, let's say, from research and innovation projects. That's why it is important to use standardization in order to maximize somehow the research results. And this because they can help researchers to bring their innovation to the market through a process which is transparent and which enables the participation of many different interested parties. And standards, they can also help to build confidence on a new innovative technology. This because standards may address, and in many cases the focus for standards is safety and quality. And they also codify requirements for new technologies. So it's something that can be shared and can be considered as a link in order to share and codify requirements for new technologies, informing both the producers and the consumers about what is to be expected by these new technologies. And again, as I said before, they allow that the new technologies and materials can be interoperable with the existing one. So the flow from standardization to the market goes through the research activities and the creation of new ideas and the transferring of part or some of the results coming from the research to standard development and then to the market. Which are the European project opportunity linked to in general? And as you may be aware, Horizon Europe Vision is a key founding program for research and innovation, and the budget is more than 100 billion euro from 2021 to 2027. And the idea is that Horizon Europe has the aim of making Europe a world leader in science and technologies. And it's a way of boosting science and innovation. And the funds are meant to discover new knowledge and create advanced technologies for the European market, making European economy stronger. They are also consider the activities and the European project founded through Horizon Europe the programs focus also on solving the big problem like climate change, health issue, and providing people enough food and clear energy. So these are strictly aligned with the UN Sustainable Development Goals that I mentioned before. And finally, the European funded program is also seen as a way to strengthen the research communities and create a stronger community across Europe for researchers, for scientists, but also working together to share that knowledge and to find an advancement for Europe, the European market in general. And what a standardization body can do within a European founded project? Well, of course, we say that a European standardization body, even if it seems a little bit strange, can innovate and develop. And what we do is during the process of defining the content of a proposal for a future of a proposal for a call for a European funded project, but also in other moment of a European founded project, we somehow define spot market needs linked to the European funded project. So we try to identify new standardization field and we provide training also to our partners and provide access to standards and disseminate and share the knowledge that comes from the project and then that can be shared across the standardization community. So it's a strategic partnership, what we promote with key stakeholders, in particular with a technical body which are linked to the specific European funded project. We propose new solution for the market in terms of standardization deliverable, which is, for example, the CEN workshop agreement for European context, or in Italian, in Italy, the prassi di riferimento, which are pre-standardization document. And participating to European funded project, we promote standardization as a technology transfer and as a tool to disseminate the result of a funded project. So concretely, what we do is essentially 3 milestones. The state-of-the-art analysis, then so what are the standards relevant to the project, what can be applicable to the project in terms of standardization, the need assessment and the gap analysis, so taking into account the existing standards, what is missing, and then the development of what we call a strategic roadmap or a CWA if it is possible, because the result of a European project are mature enough to be somehow codified using a standardization tool, pre-standardization tool as a CEN workshop agreement. In the reality, we transfer the project result to the market using standardization as a concrete tool. For what concerns, this is an example, for what concerns the state-of-the-art analysis, for example, for a project, we provide a list of applicable standards to the project, and then we develop what we call the standardization toolkit with a dashboard where the research of standards relevant to the project itself was easier because we divided it. We structure the standardization toolkit in order to define to do a research by keywords or by technical committees and so on. So making life easier to the market in order to spot the relevant standards. And we map for the Robert Armer project more than 200 standards. We create a liaison with the TC, so it's the second, it's somehow the link between a research project and the existing activities in the standardization context. And for example, we create a link with the CEN or ISO TC, establishing a formal liaison between the project and the TC. And for example, this is a liaison created between a project, the bioradar project, with the relevant ISO TC, which was dealing with the carbon, with the environmental aspect for the bio-based product at ISO level. And we also identify, thanks to the creation of a moment of workshop where people can exchange ideas and can provide inputs, we also provide a platform in order to do a gap analysis and identify the needs for future standardization activities. And for example, on 28th of May, we had a workshop dedicated to ISMEA project. It stands for Purity Project, where UNI is partner, and it was a workshop dedicated to identify a roadmap to support the definition of carbon capture standardization priorities across Europe. And it was a workshop done with the participation of more than 80 people and a strong participation from the TC 474, which is in charge of the standardization issue linked to carbon capture. And finally, the development of pre-normative documents or a roadmap. We develop for a European project a CWA dealing with the digital product passport, and it was the experience, the first document produced on the digital product passport. Here again, there's the link, because when developed through a European funded project, the CWA is freely available. And on the other side, we also developed a standardization roadmap for another funded project, BioRadar. The first one was CIRFRED for the digital product passport. This one was BioRadar, dealing with the sustainability of bio-based products. And we developed a roadmap, since the idea was to propose a CWA, but well, the context was not mature enough, so we developed a roadmap which will provide inputs for future standardization activities linked to the bio-based product context. So,
sorry, Elena, I am very sorry to interrupt. I would kindly ask you to go.
I've finished. It's finished. Sorry. You're right. Sorry, Silvio. Sorry. I've finished. Well, behind the horizon and the ISMEA, what is the annual UNO program and how the standardization request work is already explained. And among the annual work program, there is something dealing with algae. So we are expecting that for what concerns the green transition, the eco design for sustainable product, something will evolve, will address algae context. And but this is has been explained by Caroline before. And well, ISMEA is again a single market program, and it provides 4.2 billion over the period of 2021 and 2027, and it is specifically it addresses specifically the needs for future standardization activities. activities, which may go from the standardization request and then provide the different inputs for the development of standardization deliverable, which can be a European standard down to technical specification, technical report, and CWA. I'm finished. This is my contact. So if you need to contact me, do it by writing to me. And thanks for the opportunity to share this experience. And sorry for being a bit longer.
Thank you very much, Elena. Very interesting. You will receive a lot of contacts, I know. And now the time is to give the floor to Hong Xia Li. She is the former convener of several working groups in ISO 234, the Aquaculture and the Fishery Committee in ISO. So I would say our global home, algae belong to aquaculture. Lee, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Silvio. So let me share my screen first. Okay, yeah. Does it work?
It's coming, yes, but not on presentation mode.
Yes. So now it's fine.
Yes.
Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So at the first beginning, please let me thank Dr. Silvio and EABA for having me here. So my full name is Hongxia Li. I'm from China. Actually, I have been working together with Dr. Silvio for over 4 years in developing ISO standards under ISO TC 234. So it's my pleasure to be attending this wonderful seminar here, a webinar here, and share the ISO standards on algae from ISO TC 234 as required by Dr. Silvio. So I do believe ISO is very, very commonly recognized by everyone. But I also believe for most audience today, this is the first time to hear about TC 234. So if possible, I would also like to launch a poll like Laura did to ask how many our friends today know what ISO TC 234 is. So similar here that it should also be a valuable opportunity for TC 234 to show itself in such a good webinar. So before we dive into those standards on algae, I really would like to start from an introduction of ISO TC 234, if you do not mind. And then we could get a general picture of this committee and its work. After all, I have to admit that currently ISO TC 234 do not have much specific standards regarding algae that we can present to everyone for today. Comparing to our lovely speakers just presented, now the TC 234, the standardization work regarding to algae is just like a startup. So let me start from the TC 234. This committee was established 19 years ago by Norwegian Initiative, and totally we have 50 members, 20 participating and 30 observing. So since 2011, just published totally 14 standards now. It's covering many aspects of fisheries and aquaculture. It's not all about algae. And okay, there are also 8 standards are still under development. So out of these 8 standards under development, there are 3 standards are about algae. So this is the chair, the former minister of fisheries in Norway. This is our committee manager. Okay, so this is the scope, the business scope of ISO TC 234. You see that Generally, 234 is covering all aspects of the fisheries and aquaculture, exclude the food products processing. Okay, in the beginning of the committee's work, there was a lot of focus on traceability. In all, we have 6 traceability standards of aquatic products throughout the distribution chain, which is for captured and farmed fish, finfish, captured and farmed crustaceans, captured and farmed molluscan products. Because we know seafood can be transported globally over long distances, and it is important for the customers to be able to trace the entire chain back to the place of capture or aquaculture. So it is important to focus on that, and it was very natural to start with it. So thanks to this wonderful webinar, it really inspires. There should be some similar traceability standards for algae products in the future for TC234.
Yes, indeed, this issue is present in the program of the next standardization request. Thank you very much for
It's not
recalling
moving.
this.
Am I stuck?
Do you want me to try to share, Lee? I don't know why you cannot. You were seeing so far well.
I'm still on the traceability standards. No.
Yes, you are still in the traceability.
Sorry. Let me see. Let me try again. Sorry. Okay. Okay. So the next is out of the 14 published standards, there were 3 standards about waste disposal. As following the waste reduction and the treatment on fishing vessels, the waste management and reduction from aquaculture facilities in natural water bodies, also the treatment of aquaculture effluent in closed and semi-closed aquaculture system. And the other 3 are about environmental monitoring of the impact from marine finfish farms and the requirement for design, dimensioning, production, installation, operation, also some methods for sea lice surveillance. Okay, so the other 2 standards are related with carbon footprint, product category rules for finfish. Okay, then finally, you see the word ELAC, the first ISO standards on algae. It's quite new, published last June. It is also the first ISO standards we work together with Dr. Silvio. Okay, so as introduced, there are 8 ISO standards under development. The most close to publication standards are 3 ones related with algae here. You see the carbon footprint for seafood, which is for farmed photosynthetic, microalgae, and the carbon fixation rate in farmed microalgae, and the carbon fixation rate in farmed photosynthetic microalgae. So far, you see all of the 4 standards on algae now, 2 on farmed macroalgae and 2 for farmed microalgae. Oh, it seems it's not stop working again. Sorry. Okay. So this is the other 4 standards under development about the enhancement release of prawn, fish, crab, and mollusks. And the last one is about remote sensing, monitoring, and warning of a harmful algae bloom in marine aquaculture areas. So you see, although algae is also discussed in this draft standard, it does not align with our today's discussion topic. So these are all those ISO standards developed by or developing by ISO TC 234. I hope you could also see some standards of your own interests, except for algae. Okay, so next, let me brief the ISO standards on algae to the webinar. As we all know, with the increasing global climate crisis, the low carbon revolution of globalization is rising. So as a result, the carbon peaking and carbon neutrality have become important goals of global low carbon development. And so as an important participant in the ocean carbon cycle, algae play very, very important roles regarding to the decarbonization from the environment and contribute to the carbon sequestration. So it is of great significance to study its carbon footprint and so on. So this also was the original intention why we proposed those ISO standards of algae to ISO TC 234. So the first and only one already published in June 2025 is ISO 20423, the carbon footprint for seafood, the PCR for macroalgae. This document has specifies the requirements for calculating the carbon footprint specific to farmed macroalgae product. So the methodology builds on the requirements of international standards for LCA and product carbon footprints. So the overarching aim of the product is to provide some basis for a reliable and accurate information about the climate impact of the product. It is a precondition for a market driver reduction of climate impact of a macroalgae product that dealers and consumers are able to choose the products with the least climate impact. So in addition to this document will also try to provide some basis for the list here. So I am not going to read this through. So the second ISO standards on algae is ISO FDs 25250, the carbon fixation rate in farmed macroalgae, the method for sampling and analysis. So in these standards, they defines the sampling and analysis methods for carbon fixation rate in farmed macroalgae. And it is applicable to the determination and the calculation of a carbon fixation rate in farmed macroalgae. And these standards is expected to be published on next month, 15th. So I'm not sure. Maybe I cannot share much details since this standard is still under development. But I think I can really to share that this document is relevant for all the stakeholders within the farmed macroalgae sector, including but not limited to the enterprises, the government departments, and the third party of testing and or evaluation institutions. Also, here suggested by Dr. Silvio, this standards document has taken EN 17980, this EU standards, as one of the normative references. Okay, so the other 2 standards are on photosynthetic microalgae. The general similar idea on the carbon accounting and footprint as the macroalgae. Both are planned to publish by end of this year. So I will not repeat the story here. As I just mentioned, ISO TC 234 do not have much standards regarding to algae to share for today. But I can say to Dr. Silvio, so after attending today's webinar, then I see that there's much work for us to do in the future. That unlike such a standard, how can I say, a systematic standardization work from EU, that ISO TC 234 is quite fragmented. We are not focusing on algae only. And so at last, let me give a little bit reply to Mr. Perry from Indonesia, if I'm right. Because Mr. Perry has asked some questions about about the technology, right?
Yes.
And yes, so I have some little bit information for you to note that Chinese experts are preparing 3 new proposals focusing on macroalgae cultivation and breeding technologies. I think probably they could address some of your concerns. So if you are interested, you can keep contact. So this is my email. So also, if any scientists or industry experts you are interested with any ISO standards that are developed by ISO TC 234, you can get contact with me or contact with Dr. Silvio. Okay, I will stop here. Maybe I'm not overtimed, right?
Thank you, Hans.
Thank you very much, Lee. Very, very good overview of what is going ahead in ISO. ISO and the European standards are connected through the Vienna Agreement. And I would like that cooperation becomes more tough in the future. So we are a bit already out of time. So I would say that there was really a lot of knowledge sharing today. Maybe that this last slide session can be opened for 1 minute or two now for those who like to continue voting, but what I would say to wrap up and close is that the presentation will be shared. The EU4Algae is the best possible landscape thanks to the support of the European Commission to make all together participate, have our voice, and take home a lot of messages that can then be elaborated and brought forward for the benefit of algae stakeholders and to make the algae sector, European algae sector, going up to the level of the global algae sector, which can provide really a relevant contribution to many United Nations development goals, as we said. So again, thank you very much for your participation, and feel in touch through the channels that were provided today.